which was emailed out today and posted in the buildings on every floor, and also the acceptance of the minutes of December 2nd, 2019, which were distributed last week, and which as prepared by our attorney, Ezra Goodman from Norris McLaughlin, as he's done for dozens and dozens of years. So those two were deemed accepted. First, before we officially begin, well, we officially begun, but I just wanted to speak about going to the first issue of COVID, but also about some of the cooperators that we lost this year and some of our staff, long-term staff. Our outside contractor plumber, Al Fettner. These are people who did not pass away from COVID, so I just want to make that clear. Passed away earlier this year. Many people who had any plumbing issue would have known Al. Also, our former chief of security and our dispatcher, Robert McFarland, better known to everybody as Mac, passed away also earlier this year. This is all pre-COVID. And just within the last 12 days, we lost another cooperator, Warren Field, which was totally unexpected. And I mentioned Warren because he and his wife, Wilder, they took over for many years. Sammy Fleischer, people who've been around a long time will know him. Sammy Fleischer ran this program where any cooperator, actually anyone who needed, I don't think they limited to cooperators, and in all the co-ops we deal with medical equipment that's needed. That could have been walkers, commodes, wheelchairs, crutches, anything that was needed. They would either obtain them or get donations. It was an incredible service, and I think that people don't realize the value of the service until, heaven forbid, they needed it for a family member or a loved one. And just Warren and Wilder just did an amazing job, and there are many of us who have relied on them in the past, and in measurable. His life has to be measured in the number of people that he helped and lives that he made better for people in need, which really leads into also that we did lose cooperators this year. We know what's going on all over, but we did lose, sadly, cooperators this year. Some COVID and some not. A few that may have been COVID were not COVID here. They may have been in a hospital or a rehab. I mean, I know one cooperator who was just past her 99th birthday when she passed. Again, COVID, but not contracted here, but elsewhere. But we really lost a lot of cooperators that many of us individually or as a group knew, and just think that we owe them all the respect, and every cooperator who helped build up our neighborhood. Which leads us into the first topic to discuss, which is COVID, which has turned our lives upside down this year. I mean, it's unfathomable to think how we started the year and where we are now. But every one of us has an obligation, a committed obligation to keep all of us and each other and our families safe. And the simplest way and the first way is that everybody must be wearing a mask. And wearing the mask starts when you leave your apartment, inside your apartment before you open the door. It really doesn't go into your hallway while you're waiting for the elevator. You have neighbors on your floor. It surely doesn't go into the elevator where we know masks sometimes get put on. And it surely is not in the lobby where we've contacted people who we find have think that because they're leaving the building, that's where to put on the mask. We have to keep each other safe. We know that the COVID cases are increasing, even in our zip code, which is a very expansive zip code and includes a large area. But this is our neighborhood. We want to keep every cooperator safe. Please use the sanitizers when you wouldn't leave the building, but especially when you enter the building, even when you come out of the elevator, if you happen to have touched the button or about to go in, please, let's use the sanitizers, and let's use whatever. But the masks, if we have masks, if people are in need, let's hope that we're going to be turning the corner in the near future. But for right now, this is a little bit that we can do. And please, the elevators are still one person or one family at a time. They are not to be, I've had it myself where someone will say, oh, come in with me. No, that's okay. I've had it where someone tried to come in with me. And my response is, if you want to come in, I will get out and you take the elevator down. I will wait for the next. But we have to do that. Elevators, it has worked. It'll work. We'll get back to where we were. In terms of what went on with COVID, one of the things that was passed back early, maybe in May, was with the stimulus package, was the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. And that was a way that people who kept their employees on would be given loans that would then turn into grants. And, if you read the papers, you will see that it was a wide ranging. I mean, there were NBA teams, there were restaurant chains, there were comedians who were getting it. Anybody was able to apply, except that Congress did not choose to include housing cooperatives that are throughout the country in this program. I was contacted on a board, and we joined together with the CCC, the Coordinating Council of Cooperatives, to do a kind of heavy letter writing from the boards, basically saying that we represent how many apartments we each represent, asking that the co-ops be included. Now, understand, we have approximately 90 people on our payroll. This is including Hillman, because we're going back now to the spring. We had approximately 90 people on our payroll, from the maintenance, our porters, our boiler room staff. Nobody was let go. We had no intention of letting our guys go, who worked so hard for us for so many years, 20, 30, 35 or more years. But this was money that we felt we were entitled to. The letter went out to our Congresswoman, Nydia Velázquez, who happens to be the chair of the Small Business Committee in the House. And what better committee? That is the committee that wrote the bills, which she could have included us. Our letters to her and to Schumer, but other people wrote to their local congressperson. Again, we luckily had the chair. Our letters at the time and our calls sadly went unanswered. And this was sent after she had unfortunately contracted COVID and after she was back in her office. But it did go unanswered. Phone calls were not returned if you were even able to get through on the Washington number, but not the Brooklyn number. And this is a congressperson that we've had a longstanding relationship with in the community, meeting with her in her downtown office in the federal courthouse on Pearl Street, and also out in Williamsburg. So that was disappointing. Come the summertime, when there was another attempt to pass another stimulus bill, which seems that it's finally passing now, again, Congresswoman was written to, again, expressing what had happened and what we need, and all co-ops should be included. We hire a very diverse workforce, and we did not let anybody go, not us, but all the co-ops. And just to get an example, the co-ops that were involved in this program would have been Penn South in Chelsea, Big Six in Brooklyn, North Queensview, up in the Bronx Amalgamated, and Co-op City, which is the largest co-op in the country, maybe the world, And this second letter that we sent to Congresswoman Velázquez was responded to a couple of days later by a form letter just blaming the other side of the aisle for it. But it was totally form. It didn't address what we had asked. And this wasn't a question of other side of the aisle. We just wanted this PPP, housing cooperatives, included in the House version of the bill. And then wherever the chips fall, if it got to the Senate and when they do their conference to compromise on bills, if it didn't survive, it didn't survive. But if it's not in the House bill, there was no way it was going to be in the Senate bill. And although we were told at some point a month or so later, the previous time, or through the grapevine, that she would try to put it in, it never went in. So that was very disappointing. We didn't get the money. It's still our staff is here, and thank God they're here, because truly it was our maintenance and porter staff that kept our buildings as spotless as possible during COVID. We are still continuing with all our sanitizing protocols, which remain in place. And a special shout out has to go to our 32 BJ workers who just did a phenomenal job. And as said, they also did all this work. We made sure they had the appropriate PPE, protective equipment, for them to do their jobs, and the cleaning stuff, because they also have family, and they are to us in many cases family for all their years of service to us. So that's pretty much where we are now. Cases are going up. Please, everyone, we have to respect our cooperators, our neighbors. We just have to keep at this. Let's hope it's not that much longer, but as long as it is, we've already gone through. It's 9 months. It's a little over nine months since things basically shut down. The next topic that I want to discuss, which is on a lot of people's minds, would be our finances. Our finances obviously were greatly affected by many factors, but mostly by the COVID shutdowns and the quarantines that were basically in place. For example, our flip tax. Our flip tax dropped this year by 33.4%. Now, that was $1,450,000, because basically when we get to the spring months is when the best buying season or purchasing season for apartments in our neighborhood, as some students, whether they're in the kindergarten level or even into the junior high school level, get accepted into Nest on Columbia and Houston Street. This great school, and we have other great schools in our district, but Nest is a specialized school that you could stay in from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. We find every year that parents come and buy apartments, I guess, in all the co-ops, just so they could walk their children right over to the school, because they have this incredible educational opportunity that they think right down the block. And that totally disappeared this year, and sales just dried up. There were no open houses. There were no sales from. I mean, there was a sale here or there. There were a couple, but basically dried up. At our last board meeting last week, last Tuesday, we had 5 sales of apartments. So things are picking up, and we had sales in the previous months. If you see the boards that go up on Sunday, there are many apartments having open houses. We have to assume and hope that those apartments will sell. I'm told by one of the leading brokers here, that prices are down about 5%. So no great decrease, but they are down. But there are also people interested in buying, and we see that when we do the interviews for the people coming in. They're excited to live in this beautiful community. Other areas where our finances went down, and again, it should be said, this is not an East River problem. This is all co-ops have this problem. Everyone has a problem. The MTA is billions of dollars short. They're relying on the new administration to come in and perhaps bail them out. The state shortfall is around 60 billion. The city is $10 billion. Everyone is relying on Washington, which we truly hope will come through. But there are cities throughout this country, and often New York gets the short end of the stick. We hope not. We hope not this time. But this is unprecedented. What happened? We have to shut down our gym. We shut down our gym. The loss from March 15th to June 30th, besides the people wanting to use the gym, was $58,000. And yes, we got pressure from some people who wanted the gym to be opened. We cannot open the gym as long as there aren't. It isn't safe. We're not a private health club that has people to come in and clean our equipment. And you shouldn't trust if I clean the equipment after I left, and I can't trust the way you clean the equipment. So basically our gym has to remain closed, just like our playroom, until we know it's safe for everyone. But that is a loss of $17,500 every month. We are losing late fees. We have made a decision back in March, I guess, not to charge late fees. Other co-ops are still charging late fees. There are no courts where you can go to landlord-tenant. Landlord-tenant court is not open, but other areas are charging people late fees. We just did not think that it was right. Many people are struggling. We don't know who, because we don't ask. There are people who come to the office every so often now, even before, and in every case, we look for a solution to help anybody who has a personal problem or a financial problem in our office. And the late fees that we were collecting were $4,700 a month. So that also. And then our real estate taxes, if you looked at the audit report, went up from 2019 to 2020, has been mentioned many times in board letters, this year by $850,000. Our taxes this year are up to $10,400,000. Just in terms of reference, because a little bit of the taxes are paid by our commercials in terms of pass-alongs to them, but that comes out to about $375,000. So our cooperators are paying a little over $10 million this year. That was a number that 5, 6, 7 in that range years ago was in the $4 million range. So the amount of taxes, and now that the city is short, I think I said this at the last year's meeting, the amount of money the city is short, the city only has one tax. There are two taxes that the city can raise, but it's only one real tax, and that is the real property tax. The real property tax the city can raise without any state approval. All other taxes need state approval. The state being $60 billion short, if they're thinking of raising taxes, whether it's the millionaire tax or other tax, then they can do it. Years ago it would be, we're going to raise the cigarette tax. We're going to raise the tax on the sales tax. We're going to raise many things, recording taxes. The only other tax the city has the power to impose, just to be 100% accurate, is what's called the commercial rent and occupancy tax. And that is a tax that's unique to New York City. At one point, and they may still have it, only Houston had it. And that is a tax on paying rent. So after you pay your very high rents in New York, you would have to pay a tax. And that only applies, as has been phased out over the years, to Manhattan below 125th Street. And although our neighborhood is not exactly Midtown or Park Avenue or the Upper West Side, we're included in that zone. So basically, we have to expect the city will try and come back and raise real estate taxes to make up some of this deficit. We hope not. And historically, this year is unique the city council does not like to raise the tax rate, so they leave it to the Department of Finance to raise the assessments. If you raise the assessment and you keep the tax rate generally the same, then the effect is the same. And I believe that the way the tax rate is figured out, assessments are figured out, it's not on the value of sales in your neighborhood. It's also it's a factor of the rental market in your neighborhood. So having Essex Crossing opened up does not, if I'm correct, does not exactly help our assessment, because those are obviously the higher rentals that our neighborhood would have versus, you know, all the housing developers here, the co-ops, the NYCHA projects, and even in surrounding areas, the older tenements. So we have to expect that the last time that the city council raised the property tax on their own, it was going back to after 9/11 and that fiscal crisis that resulted in the tragedy of 9/11, and real estate taxes were raised, as well as a 7-year income tax increase that Albany, we asked Albany, and they granted us. At the end of the 7 years, the then mayor asked that, I think it was Early Bloomberg, asked that we extend the tax for 7 years, but the city council, which I worked at the time, said no. We gave our word that it would be 7 years, and it was 7 years, and the tax rates went back to their prior level. So, we don't know how the city is going to hit us, but we have to expect that. We have accounted for it in our budget, although our budget right now may show an increase of only $220,000 for real estate taxes. It's actually higher, it has been factored in, but it's just the way the auditors do the accounting of taking off some of the other money that the commercials are going to pay. So we did put a substantial increase in there. Our insurance went up by $75,000. Our insurance, we use a broker, and our insurance is always bid out. But because we are a big operation, there are very few who want to bid on this, because if something should happen, their liability would be great. So it's always bid out. And the last area, which we had given an increase in December 1st of 2018. We probably should always be looking at, however small an increase on an annual basis, to make up for the 32 BJ contract and other things that are factored in. The board always tries to go further and further without doing this, because we know it's an imposition on all of us, especially our fixed income and our seniors. And so we had waited, and when we were discussing an increase in January and February and really debating it, because it's not easy. It's done with heavy hearts. By the time we were looking at an increase effective even this year, March 15th or April 1st, COVID had just, by early March, this was inevitable, and by the second week already, things are shut down. Not the schools, I think, till the 20-something, but Europe was shut down around the 17th or something like that. We couldn't, in good conscience, give this increase. Even that increase that was given in August, the 11% for the 3.5 months, would have brought in $620,000, which would have been necessary. We didn't do it. We're not sorry we didn't do it. It was the right thing to do. In terms of our budget, we are looking, and we have cut numerous areas. Our security company, which is now Admiral, and I think we hear from many cooperators that we have an excellent staff going on. We have many young women and men now working in our building as security, and all we hear from most of them is praise for their conscientious manner. So that is good. So we have a decrease in the cost of security, because actually we used to share a supervisor with Hillman, but after Hillman cut a couple of shifts of security, which was their choice, we felt that our supervisor would have been spending most of his time, of which we were paying 70.4%, patrolling the blocks of Hillman where there wasn't security on certain shifts. So after the break up, they wanted to share the supervisor. We just felt that it was not going to work. We can't pay 70%. So actually now we have the supervisor at a desk as one of our security guards also. And ultimately, we're going to save quite a bit of money, maybe as much as $200,000 for the same level. In terms of our gardening in the new budget, we've started over recent years, but planting more perennials, and we are estimating that we can cut our budget about 11% next year, by about $24,000, and still keep our gardens as beautiful as possible. Look, during COVID, when people were quarantined in their house, and the only place they can go sometimes safely was our fenced-in park, just those flowers, we would get also many comments that for people just to see the colors and the blooms and stuff was a very uplifting, and it was just felt like it was a safe haven. We're hoping that our legal fees will drop. As mentioned last year at the meeting, we had, when the city, and we'll talk about resiliency soon, but when the city had put in this plan to sink a sewer conveyance 30 feet below our parking lot and within about 15, 20 feet of our sprinklers and our park between buildings 3 and 4, we hired a top lobbying firm to work with us to answer the city's EIS, their environmental impact statement. We hired Greenbrook Tarek, one of the most influential lobbying firms in the city and in Albany. As a matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago, City and State, which is a political newsletter, the main political newsletter that all politicians in the state and city kind of rely on for their tidbits on politics here in upstate, they listed the top 50 lobbyists in the state level, and Greenbrook Tarek was number 4, and it was money we believe well spent. Besides those of us that went down to city planning and were in constant contact with the city, they were coming down to every meeting, not alone. I mean, there were 20, 30 people they were bringing down from every agency, from Corp Council to lawyers to DOT to parks, from the deputy mayor's office, the mayor's office. Their environmental impact statement was torn apart. And remember, we are dealing with our side of the street. For them to do an 18-month or 2-year project in the middle of our parking lot, but right against our where the sprinkler is and where the people sit and when you come out of building 3, the noise, the environmental issues, there were so many issues that were going on. The danger, we're already a high asthma zone here in the city, and we ultimately were successful with getting the city to move that conveyance to Lewis Street and Delancey. It'll be near a few of our units, but it won't be there. And also the other issue the whole time with the parking lot was they had, by necessity, had to block in all of our plows that were up on the hill behind the boiler room, and our garage from which our equipment comes out of. And in a storm like last week, we would not have been able to get our equipment out. And if we could squeeze by, they wouldn't be able to make the turns necessary. So with that, an incident that happened earlier this year in January was the city was moving the project over to Lewis Street, and they had to do some testing into the concrete, some borings they had to do. They sent the engineers sent a company down from Queens, and they marked off an area where they were going to drill down 10 feet. They knew where we had our steam pipes, and they were going to drill down 10 feet. But the city forgot to put up a sign telling people no parking. So all there were some orange markings right across from the crosswalk that leads to PS 110 and Broome Street. This company came in on a Friday. I think it was January 25th. I remember the day, I believe, or 24th. And because there was a car parked where they were supposed to do their drilling, the person thought, hey, I could drill, I'll just move over 10 feet and I'll just drill over here. Well, he went down about 5, 6, 7 feet, and he drilled right into one of our big, whether the 10 or 12 inch, whatever, steam pipes that deliver heat to Amalgamated and to all of Hillman. Luckily, the person who did it was not killed. He was literally within an inch or two of being burnt to death, and he knew it. He was shaking for a long time, but thankfully he was okay. And through the relationships that our management office and our director of maintenance has with the various companies, we were able to get specialized plumbers down there, and the excavation company that we use to be down there within an hour, and the work was all completed by that evening. I think, and luckily that Friday was not it's a 40s kind of day, high 40s kind of day in the winter, and we were lucky to get that fixed. We received all the money that it cost us back from the insurance companies. There was a lot of work on Shuli's part and a lot of negotiations to make sure that we got it, because this again happened on a Friday, so it involved overtime and excavation work, and it was done. So in the area of resiliency, our goal is to keep our cooperators safe on the property that we can control, and in that we also have our board members who are involved in various aspects of the program. Our Vice President Ellen Gentaviso has been going to an organization that we were contacted and in contact with about 1.5 years ago or more, I think already, the Lower East Side Power Partnership, which is an organization involved in a lot of the city projects near us, the NYCHA housing and others Ellen will explain. And we've been able to make some very good community contacts, because after all, we're one large community here, and issues that affect them affect us. And if we all band together, we can get a lot more done. So Ellen, if you could speak a little bit on that. Just unmute yourself.
Thanks, Gary. So as Gary spoke of, after we, the board and management, as well as our attorney, had attended the city planning hearing about 1 year ago, July, regarding the plan to put forth that sewage conveyance with an easement into our parking lot, we were invited to join the Lower East Side Power Partnership meetings by its president, Valentina Jones. This powerful partnership includes our neighboring developments such as Gouverneur Gardens, Grand Street Guild Houses, LaGuardia Houses, Vladeck Houses, and other community neighbors. At these meetings, we discuss issues that affect the whole community. Examples are, of course, the East Side Resiliency Project Parks design plans, as well as protecting neighborhood residents during COVID with various planned community activities such as mask giveaways and the encouragement to wear masks, plans for community services such as Mount Sinai Hospital opening, and community board activities. Issues such as new construction in the community, Section 8 housing provisions, and security throughout the neighborhood are paramount. And current members and candidates of City Council have attended some of these meetings. After group discussions yield consensus, the Lower East Side Power Partnership contacts appropriate officials to present the viewpoints and seek help in changing things for the betterment of the community. I'm proud to have been the representative of East River Housing Corporation at these meetings, which make our community stronger by working together for a wholesome neighborhood. And so I'm really happy to report that we have extended out to our neighbors and have become really, really instrumental in the new development of our community, which was a sleepy neighborhood for many, many years. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for that. Next, I'd like to ask Dov Goldman, along with other people in our community. Dov is on the East Side Coastal Resiliency, the CAG, the Community Action Group, and attends meetings where the discussion goes on about the plan on the other side of the highway. It's also a diverse group of people with different opinions. And Dov, if you could tell us a little bit about what's going on there, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Hi, good evening, everyone. As mentioned, we've been very involved in the project, going back to the initial meetings with the city, and we've met numerous times, and based upon that, we were invited to serve on behalf of the board, or I was invited on behalf of the board, to the East Side Coastal Resiliency Community Action Group, the CAG, as they call it. The group is moderated by the Pratt Institute and has many parties from all over our community. To name a few, we have Gouverneur, Vladeck, Stuyvesant Town, Waterside Plaza, Two Bridges, a lot of really groups from all over the community, including, for instance, Tony Rivera from our buildings, which all come representing different concerns, groups, regarding this project. We have a lot of elected officials attending this. We have City Council members Keith Powers, Carolina Rivera, Gigi Lee. We have Borough President Gail Brewer. We have our Assembly members attending as well at times, and other representatives from other offices variously attending. Each meeting we are presented with the latest updates by DDC, which is the Department of Design and Construction, which is running the group, and from other city departments about what's going on, what changes are happening, and allows the various groups to express our concerns and give feedback to the city. By giving back this feedback, allows us to help shape the plans a little bit and express our concerns that's going on. Currently, the city has begun working on what's called Project Area 2. Now, we are in Project Area 1. Project Area 2 is really further north, closer to Stuyvesant Town. We're in Project Area. In the area that we are in, they're only doing the bidding process right now. They were supposed to be doing the bidding back in November of last year, but they're currently delayed. So our area is kind of stalled, and at the moment, until the bidding is done, there's nothing that the group is currently doing, because once the bidding is done, we can then talk about the work scope. We could talk about what equipment's going to be used, how it's going to be used, how it will affect our quality of life. Right now, they're currently working only on Area 2, which is near, as I mentioned, Astor Levy by 23rd Street. This group meets monthly. We as well get weekly updates, email updates on the project, which allows us to keep a pulse on the work and allows us also to give direct feedback at any point back to the entire group. And I'm actually proud to represent us there, and it really, I think, is very helpful for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dov. Thank you. The next topic I want to speak about is our mortgage. As you can see the scaffolding down along Grant Street, along by buildings 3 and 4. This has to do with local law 11, which is the building facade work, which originally started 20 years ago as a once in 10-year cycle. Over time, the city has expanded those cycles. Originally, the first cycle, I think, cost us $2.8 million for the last cycle. And as incidents happen in the city, last year, unfortunately and tragically, a woman was killed walking along Midtown, I think 49th Street, by some falling facade. The city immediately changed their regulations and decided that new work had to be done, especially scaffolding. And the scaffolding was now going to be required every 60 feet, linear feet, which could be vertical, horizontal. And scaffolding is a very, very expensive proposition. And that's why you see very, very extensive scaffolding that's there now. We bid out the local law 11 work. The high bid came in at $7.6 million. The low bid was $4.9 million. We then sent the bids out again. We resubmitted them out again. The low bid stayed at the 4.9. Some of the higher bids came down from the 7.6 down to 6.9, 7.1. Nowhere in the ballpark. The contract was awarded to Xenos Construction, who does a lot of our work. When you do see work on terraces, it's often Xenos has been the low bidder. We know that they are reputable, but this was an expense that is $5 million. It's $5 million. There's a certain amount of work allocated in there, and we just, again, with COVID going on, we just couldn't see going back to the cooperators at this time. I know there are people who will say, well, if you had a reserve fund, you may have had the money for this, but a $5 million reserve fund would have meant, even on a 3-year cycle, $3,600 for a 2-bedroom apartment. Just using 2-bedroom as an average sized apartment, it would have meant $3,600. If it was over 3 years, it would have been $100 extra a month. And again, this regulation is pretty new, but we just felt that this is just a hard time. Generally, expenses have to be covered by carrying charges. We are a co-op that historically has relied on the flip tax to help us along. Flip tax fluctuates based on, we don't know how many sales there are. We hate to say we don't know who gets a job and moves away, who wants to go south, even sadly who might pass and sell their apartment. So it shouldn't be something we rely on, but we rely on it because we're a family, we're a co-op, and we're trying to keep things as affordable. In this case, at this point in time, we just could not see doing this to our cooperators. And again, knowing that the time is going to come when our roofs will need to be redone. Our roofs are 30 years old. We put in John Mansfield 25-year no limit guarantee roofs. We put in a top-notch roofs. They've lasted well, but they're still 30 years old. Our elevators, eventually, we have a good contract, and we have our service person from Century Elevator on call. He has an office right here, so we know that those are in good shape. But those times to come, we felt this was and we had some advice from cooperators also in the financial area besides our own experts, and we felt this was a time to renegotiate our mortgage at historically low rates, and we were able to increase the amount of our debt. We did increase it to $40 million. But we were able to get a rate of 2.875%. There was a time when our mortgage was over 14% in this co-op years ago. We got this rate. We got the rate with the same bank we have now, which is New York Community Bank. In order to say that our debt to value ratio is 3.2, they do an independent survey and an independent appraisal because they don't want to give extra money if they don't feel safe, and they assessed our property at $1.3 million. So we're very comfortable with that kind of debt to value ratio. It will help our cooperators now. Some of the money will be set aside for emergencies, and emergencies that might be related to COVID, and emergencies like real estate taxes and other things. This is the plan that the 11 members of the board came up with, thinking that it's the best thing we could do to help our cooperators. Another area that we deal with in terms of helping our cooperators is, of course, our NORC, our naturally occurring retirement community. I was fortunate and honored that about 24 years ago to be one of the founders of the NORC program among the co-ops with us and Penn South and North Queensview and Bronx Amalgamated when the program started. Our NORC has become a model for NORC throughout the country. Our NORC is visited pre-COVID all the time by people just coming to study our program. One of our original executive directors of our NORC was Cheryl Fuller. Then Bonnie LaMaggia came in for about 15, 20 years. Bonnie has now moved on in the same field, but to a better opportunity for her. And actually, currently, we have Cheryl. Cheryl has stepped back in, and our NORC does programs for our seniors. And during COVID, in the early days of COVID, we were reached out to and we were asked whether we would be able to get volunteers among our cooperators to help with some of their critical care patients. We put out a notice, and a fair number of cooperators volunteered to pick up medicine, to do shopping, to do other things for the cooperators. For the cooperators, and some of those cooperators are still helping out our NORC. Our NORC has an incredible social worker in Ned Lustbader. Anyone who's had to contact Ned or anyone who has an issue, he is just, his caring is just phenomenal. I want to thank all those volunteers and keep it up. The NORC is always looking for volunteers. The other thing is, there's an example in one of our sections and one of our floors where the neighbors have banded together just in the last month with a cooperator who's into her 90s, but fiercely independent and would never ask for help. But the time has come and the neighbors have stepped up, been in contact with the NORC, trying to get whatever help this person needs in a loving way. So our NORC is something that we're proud to fund. We fund our NORC at similar to Seward, we both give $57,000. We are the main source of income for our NORC. The money that they get from the state or city, while hopefully substantial, there are now well, we used to be only 4 or 5 NORCs. There are now so many NORCs that it's become that the money that's available has to be shared over many neighborhoods. Excuse me. I want to just go back to the mortgage. I think I may have said, in case I said $1.3 million, it's one. I don't know if I said that, but in case it's $1.3 billion that we are, our appraisal is, which and that's taking into account the current economy with sales are and property values other than in the high end luxury are down. So we might even eventually be worth more. In terms of the resiliency work, in terms of the Local 11 building facade work, really the plan is that you see the scaffolding now. You don't see the work starting just yet because we need the money to that $5 million. Once we have our mortgage set, which will be in very early January, we expect first week or two of January, work will commence, and depending on the weather, works will commence in buildings 3 and 4. And once everything is finished in buildings 3 and 4, you will then see the scaffolding move across the street to the other side of the other side of the street, and then we will complete the work. Hopefully, everything will be okay. As people who walk up, especially up East Broadway, notice. I mean, Seward has major issues, not their doing, not their fault, but whole balconies on the top floors have to be redone. Lack of rebar by a builder a long time ago. We don't have that issue, and we of course pray that we don't have any kind of issue like that. But these city mandates, just like other new green city mandates that come along. Every time, the saying at the citywide cooperative movement is that when the city goes green, the green they want is our green, because everything is very, very expensive to comply with. There's nothing simple as, like, you know, changing, you know, putting some insulation somewhere. There are major things that go on. But other economies are, of course, our boiler room, our state-of-the-art boiler room, and that is led by our chief engineer, again, who's been with us for over 30 years, Jimmy Ritchie. And I think I just want to introduce, and then I'll introduce and name some of our chief engineer is Jimmy Ritchie, has a great crew who were there. They're always available. Our director of maintenance, Bob Westcott, has been with us also over 30 years. His chief deputy, Eddie Velasquez, and I have to say, the snow removal job that they did this week, this past, 3-4 days ago, as always, is just to a T. It's like a military operation. They really have a plan of where they start and where they go and the order they do. Obviously, we didn't have to clean by Hillman. It makes it a little easier, but these are our workers who, after putting in their full shift, because the snow was starting right around the end of the shift, give or take an hour, they then had to work all into the evening and all through the night. I mean, it's a very, very tiring, stressful job, pushing that plow sometimes through the snow, when you have to be careful that someone just doesn't step in front of you, and just to be careful what's doing. So they really did a great job. Our security supervisor, Cleveland, has been here for a good number of years. We're joined tonight on this call by our attorneys from Norris McLaughlin, Ezra Goodman, Michael Riley, and Pam Mushler. Our management office staff is led by our general manager, Shuli Wollman, and our controller is Saul Wennick, who both of them, one is here 1 year longer than the other. Great support staff. Deneen Cassiano, Harry Packer is our assistant controller, Galina Palace. We have Elliot Kaplan, Michael Wollman, Evelyn Perez, Fermina Perez in our back office. Just great bookkeeping staff who are there to help if you have any issues. And in terms of introducing your current board, we have our Vice President, Ellen Gentaviso, heard from a little earlier. Our Secretary is Dov Goldman. Our Treasurer is Michelle Amar. We have John Sotomayor, who I say is our Secretary Emeritus, was Secretary for many years and always steps in when necessary. Thank you, John. Richie Kenny, Larry Goldman, Rachel Ehrenpreis, Diana Wang, Ruvain Bell, and Steve Barberi. That is the board. They're a very dedicated group, a group with difference of opinions, but we all try to come together for what is best for our cooperators, what we feel is right for our cooperators, taking into account the concerns of other people and the difference of opinions. We'll get back a little later to questions, which will cover a few more topics. But at this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Jeffrey Super, also our long-term chair of our House Committee. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Gary. Good evening, everybody. Pleasure to join the meeting under our new technology. Welcome to everybody. Hope everybody is well. We'll get through this. We'll work together and continue the good work at East River. It's a wonderful community. Our House Committee is a long-standing East River tradition. 11 cooperators whose primary mission is to focus on quality of life matters. We serve in an advisory capacity, We work with the board and management and try to represent the views of our fellow cooperators. The House Committee meets on a monthly basis, thanks to Elliot now meeting on Zoom. We focus on a lot of areas that try to get into what quality of life is here, which includes our buildings and grounds, security issues, transportation, and sustainability. We also endeavor to try to promote better communication throughout East River by arranging periodic lobby meetings and our annual ice cream social event. Let's hope that if our vaccines take and life sort of comes back to normal, we might have an event sometime later in the spring or summer. I'd like to at this time thank and acknowledge members of the House Committee. They're not on the call, but I would introduce them all and talk a little bit about some of their roles. Sahela Abdul Ali is one of our new members this year. Carmen Alvello, a longtime member, is our security guru. Anthony Brownie, who is working on his second term, is the producer of our East River newsletter. Judy Capel, who's been on the committee for a while, off and on, is serving as the thankless job of our secretary. And Leo Honig, a longtime head of the House Committee before me, is our transportation czar, keeping us advised on bus service and other issues in the neighborhood. Ted Pender has been on the committee for a couple of terms. One of our new members is Jackie Petula. She heads our social activities efforts, did a terrific job with our last event, I guess. It was a lobby meeting in February. I also want to thank and note Tom Skibicki, who has been serving as our vice chair for the past year. Tom leads our efforts in the buildings and grounds area. We have done walkthroughs of the buildings and the grounds and brought matters to the board and management's attention and work with them to try to get them addressed. In the coming year, Tom is leading our efforts to promote initiatives that will hopefully lead to better quality of life for our community. For example, now we're kind of researching ideas about improving door accessibility within the co-ops, doing the research and then talking with management and the board to see if these things can be addressed. Obviously, our role is advisory. We don't make budgetary decisions, etc., but we try to work with the board to provide information. And also, I'd like to thank Christine Vasquez, who regularly attends a lot of community meetings in our neighborhood, like the 7th Precinct Council and the Lower East Side Emergency Preparedness Council, reports back at our monthly meetings, and then hopefully any action or information that needs to be presented is. I would also like to acknowledge the role of Larry Goldman, one of our board members, and a former House Committee member who serves as board liaison. He attends our meetings and helps us collaborate with the board and keep in sync. Also want to thank David Flaherty, a cooperator and graphic artist who assists us with the newsletters and posters. And especially I'd like to note and thank Elliot Kaplan, who has helped us in technical areas and getting our Zoom protocols, and has been very responsive in following up on various issues raised by the committee and by cooperators. We receive a variety of communications from cooperators through our email account, which is erhousecommittee@aol.com. There's a link which Elliot has set up on the East River website that cooperators can just click on if they have any questions or ideas, and we welcome them. All of these ideas or concerns are discussed at our regular meetings and followed up as necessary with the board and management. We welcome your questions and suggestions. We recognize that East River has a tremendous source of talented people, and hopefully we can figure out how we can use some of that talent to improve quality of life here. If we identify, or as we identify, any particular ideas to explore, what we will do is communicate in our newsletters and reach out for help. This was done very successfully by Larry Goldman. I guess it's about 8 or 9 years ago when Larry identified that we needed new signs to represent our properties much better. We reached out, we found a bunch of graphic artists, we helped put it together, and those are the kinds of things that we want to continue to keep doing. So please communicate with us. Again, our email address is erhousecommittee@aol.com. And I just wanted to conclude by wishing everybody, you and your families, all the best during this holiday season, and hopefully a safe, happy, and healthy new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the report and for the work that the House Committee does every year in our cooperative. Next week, but before I do, I want to thank all the candidates who put forward their name this year to run for office, be for the board or the House Committee. It's good to see involvement and people willing to step up to volunteer. Now I'd like to call on our election chair, Ellen Gentaviso, who will read the names of the candidates for the Board of Directors and for the House Committee.
So joining in with Gary, I thank all the candidates for stepping up. As he said, it requires significant hours of volunteer work. The candidates for 4 seats for the Board of Directors are Michelle Amar, Steve Barbieri, Lee Berman, Anthony Brownie, Dove Goldman, Denise Kohler, Ayana Quint, Matthew Schatz, and Diana Wong. The candidates for 3 seats on the House Committee are Christine Alaferis, Jeff Super, Timothy Rucker, and Christine Vasquez. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Ellen. Next, our attorney is Ezra Goodman, but I'll call on Michael Riley. If Michael, you could just explain the procedure that will take place tomorrow night when counting the ballots will commence.
Sure. Thank you, Gary. This is Mike Riley from Norris McLaughlin. And this year, because of COVID protocols and just an abundance of caution, the election procedure will be conducted in our office at 7 Times Square. We've moved since last year. So Pamela Mushler and myself will speak. We'll go through the ballots, and the candidates will be invited to join via a secure Zoom link, and it will be focused on our conference room. So as I said, Pam and I will conduct the election, and currently over 700 envelopes have come in, so there's no issue with quorum this year, which is great, and we will proceed with tabulating the election results.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Okay, so the next order of business are the questions that have been submitted to us, and we'll go through all of them, or time permitting, till our adjournment at 9. We'll get through many. I think we will get through all. The first question has to do, is whether it was felt that the board and management felt it was important to spend money on flowers in the summer when we had a pandemic on our hands, unexpected expenses. It was felt that it was the perfect time and the right time. One of the things we've gotten most compliments on, besides our COVID response, by thanks from so many people, was the fact that in this, you know, again, just unimaginable time, that people could go down to the parks and have the flowers and the colors and the variety. Families were getting together, friends were getting together, socially distanced in the park. And yes, it's not a cheap expense, but it was an important expense as people stayed within our fenced-in parks, even you know, at different times in the city. And we have to be honest, the crime rate is, we're all aware that the crime rate is up in our city. We're lucky to have our secure fence where people can feel safe. We hope that this is just a temporary blip, you know, in the crime rates, but it's reported all the time. So the flowers were deemed important, and we think the cooperatives believe so also. Another question has to do with what plans are there, if any, to deal with the lack of parking spaces. The issue of parking is something that has been discussed at the board level since time immemorial. It's always been discussed. There aren't, basically, you're on a list, and that list takes a long time for you to get to. Those of us who are older know that time passes pretty fast. Our whole life passes very fast. But you wait your turn, and whether that's 13, 15, 16, whatever the years are, your turn does come, and those behind you have to wait. It's just the way it is. We have a limited number of spaces. We have looked at a variety of issues over the years. We have looked at, do we bring an attendants in, because our parking lot we have two parking lots. You need attendants on both sides, and Delancey Street is equivalent to 2 blocks long. Do we double park cars in? If we double park cars in, we would not be able to do any snow removal, because even if the plow can go up the narrow portion, they wouldn't be able to clear out the spaces where those cars are that now just got blocked in. So a typical storm like the other day, which was not a very terrible storm for New York City, makes that not only unfeasible, but it would require that how do we have even staff working in the parking lot without facilities for them, without building facilities for them, bathrooms and other things. But again, it would make our equipment and our garbage carts coming in, it's not feasible. Over the years, we looked at, is there a possibility of doing lifts? Well, the problem with lifts are twofold. One, if you live on the first floor, you can't have a lift. A lift would be, the top of the lift would be almost in your window. It's just not fair to people who spend money for their apartments that there are lifts there. But more importantly, our buildings are built on piers. Our parking lot is basically built on landfill from what was the river before there was the FDR Drive, if you look long ago at plans. So we do not have the capacity to put heavy lifts in. And remember that lifts would also, because of the legs of the lifts, it would take away many, many spots. Also would need 24-hour attendant. It would make the cost prohibitive. As we learned with the resiliency, there is water, massive amounts of water flowing right under our parking lot. Some of it is river, and some of it is sewer. When we had one of the sewer covers removed last year to show when we had the city down, what was raging about 10 feet down there was it may have been sewer, but it was a raging river. It was really a terrifying sight in the sense of what was down there. God forbid anybody fell into that hole. They were gone. So we do not have that capacity. The real thing is there is a list. I know this person wrote that there were some candidates who said they're going to find solutions and they're going to move the list along. The fact is people wait for the list. And if people waited 15 years for the list, nobody is being told you've been in the block for 10 years. Goodbye. Someone who just moved in here 5 years ago or 7 years ago is going to take a spot. Everyone waited their turn prior, and everyone's going to have to wait their turn in the future. It's not good. There is parking available in nearby lots if people want. Luckily, in our neighborhood, it's not good to be on-street parking, but luckily there is more, I'm not saying safe, but more on-street parking because of the angle parking, and there's less alternate side of the street parking than there was years ago when our neighborhood included many blocks even had Saturday and for sure on Wednesday. So we'd love to have more spots, and this will go to another question that we had, and that had to do with why the question was, why has management not done an audit of the parking spaces to see who's actually parking? Actually, just last year and not many months before COVID, and it does take a while, all parking spots were recertified. Those who did not have current registrations were removed from the lot. Every time we do this, it's a very few number of spots that are found to be taken back. Sometimes the number is three or four, and we're happy to do it and give out those 3 or 4 spots. But everybody had to bring in their registration and their licenses to show that they were registered. We have looked at, is there a way of reconfiguring the lot? Now we're talking about Delancey Street, which is the larger lot. Is there a way of reconfiguring the parking lot? And the answer is that even when the city looked for us, I believe that they were looking at a possibility when they move, understand that the double fence on Delancey Street is going to be moved down towards the compactor because the new overpass the city will be building, not for at least several years, has to be what's called under the ADA universal grade, which means the current overpass is too steep and not wide enough. So the new overpass is going to come much further west on Delancey Street. So our fence will be moved, paid for by the city, and the city in their plan would have said that they could create perhaps 4 spots by making our lot one way. That would have meant that all cars that come into the lot, even if they're going back towards the park area, would have to go all the way down to the FDR Drive, make a right turn there, and then swing around. So that would be hundreds of cars a day. The cars that would be a very narrow area, the cars that would be at that end would, every time a car turned, would face being clipped. But the other side of this was that once you do that, then the city said we would be required to put in an equal number or 1 extra handicap spot in the parking lot. Not a handicap spot that goes to people who might have a handicap permit, but basically like when you see it at a supermarket, the handicap spots that are there, they would be for visitors, but visitors can't come into our lot because it's a locked lot that's only used with a with a clicker. So really there was no gain there. It actually probably would have been a net loss. To go back to the next question, it has to do with how are we seeking to maximize our commercial spaces? The question about the beauty parlor has been vacant for many months. Are we actively seeking tenants? And that I'm going to turn that over to Shuli, who can speak about the commercial spaces.
Thank you very much, Gary. I'd like to welcome and thank all the cooperators for attending the annual meeting. Rose's House of Beauty has been vacant approximately a year and a half. We have attempted to seek different types of commercial tenants. People come, there are many different types of stores that would like to come in. Most of them are food establishments. And currently from Cozy Corner to the Chinese restaurant, Amy Chan, who pay us anywhere from $40 to $45 a square foot. Competition this day and age would not be advisable. There were a few tenants that have come in who have requested really what we thought was great ideas, and they didn't pan out. Again, does it come down to the numbers? There are people who want to come in that would not make our community as special as it is, smoke shops and things that the community would not want. There is one option out on the table now. I really don't want to discuss it at this point. That would make the community a nice store, but we'll have to wait and see if that pans out to anything and hope that it does. And we'll continue seeking to do the best for East River Housing on the commercial property.
Thank you, Shirley. And I should also point out that all of our upstairs, the offices upstairs are all rented. Unfortunately, upstairs is a steep 2-flight story. That's where Rose's House of Beauty was originally upstairs. But as the clientele got older or younger, just couldn't. It was very, very steep to walk up there. Many of you may have seen an article that was in the New York Times, I believe it was November 6th, that said that there said many, but I don't know the number, co-ops uptown that were giving decreases to their commercial tenants because, and passing along the expense to the cooperators. Why were they giving these increases to the cooperators and decreasing the commercial rent? According to the New York Times, was that these stores had been there for 30 or more years, and they considered those store owners family, the local store downstairs. And they knew that if they did not give them this decrease, that the store would become vacant perhaps and would not be rented. Before COVID, the number always used was 10,000 vacant storefronts in the city, just a generic number. But now all anyone has to do is just walk anywhere, even in our neighborhood, especially further up Grand Street, and you could see so many empty and boarded up stores. So a vacant store just becomes impossible to rent, and they just wanted to keep the stores there. We are lucky. The stores that we have been there a long time. I mean, Frank's Bod Shop is known throughout the city. It's one of the great institutions in our city. Cozy Corner, the cleaning store, our realtor, the Chinese restaurant has been there for well over 30 years. Well over 30 years. One thing that we had to do, and this had nothing to do with COVID, and that also happened. Our supermarket has been terribly hurt by Trader Joe's. Even Target has a mini supermarket up there where some people can shop, but Trader Joe's has decimated some of the local stores. Also, we have a Wegmans now over in Brooklyn that I know there are people who go out there and people shop elsewhere. Our supermarket was falling behind in their rents. They have been with us for over 25 years. The owners of our store and Seward, there were some of the same owners and some different partners. Seward had helped them out and reduced their rents, which we were getting crazy, very, very high rents for. And they had come to us that they were ready to go bust. If we didn't work with them, we did work with them. We did give them a decrease in their rents down to still a high. I think it was about $40 a square foot, escalating back up every couple of years to a much higher level. In return, they were guaranteed by General Trading Corp, which is one of the big companies that supplied many of the supermarkets in New York City. Dozens and dozens and dozens of supermarkets in the city. And actually, they're the ones that are responsible for the flyers you see in the building, because they're the ones that get the product to say, all right, Heinz ketchup will be on sale tomorrow, or this or that. And with this agreement, they paid us back something like $500,000-$600,000 that they owed us, with a pledge to redo the store which they have done to make it brighter, to widen the aisles, to increase their product selection, to really fix up the store, and they have done that. Understand that our store is quite a bit smaller than the store in Seward, so some of the options are not available here that the Seward store has. So we did that. We renegotiated the lease. We have a long-term lease for them. Again, if we lost a supermarket, there are no supermarkets to come in. Those who've been in a long time and you know supermarkets, they don't exist. When they go out, if you're lucky, if a Rite Aid or CVS comes in, where whatever little supermarket area they have, the prices are exorbitant. We had at one point by Gouverneur Gardens, we had a Sloan's. Of course, we had our Pathmark. Many of the stores uptown, we know there are no more supermarkets. That for us would be vacant space. We have 3 big tenants. We have, of course, the supermarket. We have Cozy Corner. Cozy Corner also has about 10 more years on their lease, and on Cozy Corner's lease, they're paying also Shuli would know the exact price.
They're paying approximately $55 a square foot, as well as we have Paul Taylor Dance Company. It's
Right.
a long tenant.
Paul,
And a great tenant.
A great tenant. Paul, the Cozy Corner, as you know, they were renovating when COVID hit and they couldn't get a delivery of glass, so they were actually closed for several more months. Paul Taylor is an amazing story to have people like Paul Taylor to come in here. It was such an honor for one of the premier dance studios, and credit for that has to go to our late great general manager Heshi Jacob, who saw an article in the paper or just heard that Paul Taylor, who was in Soho, they were having problems with the landlord, or the landlord wanted to raise the rent. Heshi contacted one of the brokers. The next thing we know, they're down here. They love our auditorium space, which we are renting out a few times a year for exams sometimes. Used to be sometimes parties that went on into the middle of the night. So having Paul Taylor here, and Paul Taylor also rents some of our other space, it's just a great honor, and we hope that Paul Taylor will be able to get back into the business. Obviously, their spring program, their fall program, their winter program was not held. Just like Broadway is still dark through next May or June when we hope. The next question we have, and that was also another question from a cooperator about the tenants paying market rate, okay, and how long are the leases. So you see we have long-term leases. Another cooperator has written that he has some security concerns about his bicycle being stolen outside Building 2, outside 577 Grand Street. Says the thieves cut the lock with an angle grinder and took the bike away in a truck. I wish whoever saw that had gotten the license plate. He could have. We have an extensive network of cameras. The police department is in our office. The police department is in our office all the time because our camera helps them solve crimes. They are regulars in Elliott's office pre-COVID because they might have a suspect that they know ran up Lewis Street, ran this way, that way. We're always there. Our cameras are extensive. If any incident happens, we are glad to be looking at our camera and to help. But the fact of the matter is that on Grand Street, a bicycle on the street in a city that has, a much greater level of crime and theft, we care. We have the cameras. We'll look, but we can't be responsible for someone leaving their product, and the bicycle on the street. We don't want it to happen. We hope that these were reported to the precinct. You should know that the commander of the local precinct, she recently moved up. 7th precinct is a great precinct to be in, and everybody who's here winds up even going higher. So the deputy inspector Raleigh Boville. She has left, but we had her down to 2 of our board meetings so that we could work always cooperatively on issues of crime. This person also wrote something that is not correct, but it's that you understand that there were mailboxes in 573 broken into. That is not the case, and we have cameras by every single mailbox area in our co-op. And surely, I think you could address this thing with the package in the box.
Right. The way we were presented the question about the missing box is when the postman or UPS puts the package into the standalone boxes in the corner by the mailboxes, and the post office delivers, the boxes, their packages, the parcels to the area that it's placed in. When the door is open from the mailboxes, it blocks the area that the package was put in. But we believe the package was put in, and the mailman put a key into a different person's mailbox. Again, I can't tell you that the person who received the key opened the mailbox and stole the package. We can't see the package going in. It was, I believe, in building 3. Unfortunately, building 2. We believe the person reached out to the Amazon or the company that delivered it and did receive a credit, and or we give this same information to the cooperators. Please file a police report. It is very important that people with sticky fingers have to be dealt with, and there are people who have that problem in the building and have to be dealt with.
And I should say that our security staff, one of our young guards, recently did catch somebody who was in one of our buildings trying to steal Amazon packages, and really doing their job and bravely held the person until the police came. So, again, we have a good young staff. We're going to end at 9, but I want to go over, there's still some more questions that I think I want to get to. And surely the next is, could you talk about the mask compliance, which is very important among the staff?
The board, together with management, has really been very, very strict as to mask compliance. We give the PPE to our maintenance department, our boiler room. Is as uncomfortable as it is, it's something that is the rule today. It's the law, almost the law, that one must go out with masks. That I'm a little bit crazier personally. I go with gloves on. That's something that I feel very self-conscious of, and I feel that I want to be super protected. But today, as Gary mentioned earlier, a mask, as soon as you leave, as soon as you open your door to your apartment, put on your mask, walk out of your apartment. We demand it of all the employees. When you're out, you can be in the lunchroom, you don't have to wear a mask. But even if you're in the lunchroom and you're not eating, wear a mask. We ask that the cooperators, we supply all the buildings with masks, hand sanitizer. We expect the cooperators to do it. It's something that's going to help your neighbors, and it's something that is a cooperative thing, and it's a healthy thing to do today at this point.
Okay, thank you, Shirley. One other question, is it possible to update the drab lobbies and common spaces? Well, that's a matter of opinion, but of course that's also a matter of a very, very large expense, and it's not something that we feel we can entertain now. It's something always in the future, but again, that's a matter of opinion, and we appreciate everyone's opinion on that. We had a question about how much revenue from Hillman Housing has been lost with Hillman's severance of ties with East River. The answer is absolutely nothing, because there was no profit incentive. We were partners with Hillman, so there was no revenue made. Everything was cost Everything was cost neutral. Has maintenance staff been let go? The answer is no. There were 57 porters and maintenance men. Under the 70-29.7 split, we were required to take 40. We said from the beginning we would gladly take out 40, whether we need them or not, but these are union men. They've been with us, their family. Hillman had to take 17. They fought for a number of months. They only wanted to take 14. Eventually, they took the 17 men, and then each co-op can decide, work with the union to see if they go down. Will Hillman continue to purchase heat from East River plant? There's a contract with Hillman that has another 11 years to run. They are entitled to heat and hot water from us. They want to keep that. Another question has to do with about the board reporting to shareholders, and we are going to look into this of putting out some kind of summary of our board meetings on a fairly regular basis, and definitely as the need arise. Another question was, how many sublets do we currently have, legal sublets? And the number is, there are 57 sublets, plus there is one that is beginning January 1st. So that makes a total of 58. During COVID, some of our sublets had trouble with their occupants, let's call them, not paying their rent or trying to move back home with their family or getting out of New York. During the term of the 1-year agreement with East River, we still get the fee that is owed for the month. If the person subletting the apartment wants to keep their tenant there, they can, of course, reduce their rent to even what the co-op charges and the base rent. But generally, they don't want to do any reduction, even if they would break even, because even again, breaking even, the person living there would at least cover the base rent for the cooperator. But that's their choice. So currently, there are 58 sublets. Question was, how much do we get in on storage fee? The answer is storage fee brings in $14,500 a month. The bike fee brings in $4,400 a month. We do have another storage room that's an outside vendor comes in and has those cages that people can rent. We have one building. We have a bike room in every building. One building has 2 bike rooms. We have the doctor's office in there. And another question had to do with the average annual cost of kilowatts of power. We negotiate our kilowatt price with Con Edison every 2 years. We currently pay 7.25 cents a kilowatt to get our electricity. While you see a fluctuation, different months from 7 to 16 additional cents is what's called transportation. In the summertime, they tend to go up at 16, 17 cents, and your bill will show 23, 24, 25 cents a kilowatt, where already by last month it had dropped to 16 cents, and it might still go down a little more. So the actual electric rate is very low. In terms of whether we've looked at solar, we have looked at solar, but actually, and there are some programs, but the programs, really the grants are not enough to make the incentive, because the number of sunny days here is why you don't see all that much. You see some solar, and I don't think that it is feasible for us to do that with the money that we would, some of the grant money we would be getting. It just would not be productive to do it at this point. It's always something that as new technology comes along, we would do it. And 2 other questions that have come in have to do with Hillman. One has been why, there's a story of why we did not bid on, why Hillman we did not bid to keep Hillman within our family. Hello? Why we did not bid to keep Hillman within our family. I can tell you that back in very early February, I was in Israel. I got a call from David Brown, the then president of Hillman. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. He didn't know I was there, so the time difference, I was asleep when he called, and he said that they were going to put Hillman out to bid to about 6-7 vendors, and East River was welcome to bid on them. My response was, first of all, we can't bid We're not a management company. We were a self-managed family with Hillman. We are not, we're volunteers on our board. We are not someone who can bid on keeping you in, because that's not what we do. We do things jointly. Second of all, at the time, I had said to him at that moment, because 2 weeks earlier I had met with them, the president of Hillman and their assistant treasurer. And at that point in time, they owed us $260,000, which they hadn't paid, which was the payroll. Most of it was payroll for the men, and the backup was all there. He knew that. And if you owe us $260,000, even if we had the ability to bid, which we don't, because again, we're not a management company. We're all the same. We're just cooperators here. Why would I bid on someone who isn't paying their bills now? And lastly, Hillman has, from Marks, Paneth, and Schroen, has an audited financial report that comes out every single year. Their finances and exactly what it costs to be part of this family, where they pay 29.7%, even though in many cases they may have been using up much more than that. We don't know. It's a family. So, there's a lot of give and take, and you win some, you lose. Maybe they use more of this, maybe more of that. That Hillman, their financials are for all to see. So those people who wanted to do a bid with Hillman, all they had to do was look at the finances of Hillman and decide, oh, well, we see what it's costing them now. We can undercut that. Whether that's true or not, they'll find out in a year or so. But as a matter of fact, if Hillman's budget was $10 million, or whatever the amount was that they're sharing with East River, let's say that was $1 million or $2 million, the only way that we could say, oh, we're going to give you a better break, we'll say, all right, instead of the $2 million that you now pay us on this 29% ratio, is we'll only charge you $1.5 million, let's say. That means every cooperator in East River would have to make up that $500,000, because those are the fixed costs between East River and Hillman. And we're not in the business of management. We're just cooperators. But why would East River cooperators have to pick up that tab for Hillman? It made absolutely zero sense. It was their choice. Again, would wish them well, but they know exactly what it would cost. And in fact, the president of the Hillman had told me at the time that he thought, he wasn't sure. He thought they might break even or might cost them a little more. This is before they hadn't thought about the garbage, and that's the last issue I want to bring up. It has been raised. Someone said, how come East River doesn't pick up Hillman's garbage? East River picked up Hillman's garbage at one point during the 2 months that we were negotiating the details of divorce. Hillman asked if we would consider picking up their garbage. So they wanted to take heat and hot water for us and pick up their garbage. They wanted everything from us except for, I guess, our staff. And the answer was, well, if we're not part of a family, you can make us an offer. For us, this is revenue that can offset some of the expenses of East River cooperators. Make us an offer of what you think it would be worth for us to pick up your garbage. They never came through with an offer of even a penny. And understand, the offer couldn't be that they're going to pay the 29.7%, because that was a family breakdown. It's not when you're not part of us. But they didn't offer. Came late August. We knew they were having trouble. We went to them, spoke with David Brown. Shuli, I think, spoke with David Brown, and we were ready to offer to help them for the first few months to tide them over. We said, but you would have to pay for the men at a minimum on a 50-50 basis. If you would look right now, if you would go out to Lewis Street, you will see 100 bags of garbage that are sitting there, hopefully for pickup tomorrow, some covered in snow that have been there since last week. On Columbia Street, the guys can't even push in the recycling that's there. And Hillman's paper clear bag recycling was being stored in Building 3, right by the maintenance office in the bulk room. We were taking their bags of garbage, and whatever resultant insects come with that. So we offered to help them with their garbage, but instead of offering to pay for the staff, and remember, moving garbage from Hillman, from the Willard Street near the Bialystoka Synagogue, to use its point of reference, if you don't know Willard Street, and Broome, is a lot further than from any East River building. they said no, they didn't want to pay for any of our men. They wanted to know whether they could keep wheeling, which would take them all day because they just use those painters carts, their garbage over to our facility. And in speaking to, for nothing, and in speaking with our management staff and our head of maintenance, of course, that's not possible because the Hillman employees are not East River employees anymore. And if anyone should get hurt near the compactor or anywhere, it would be our liability. So the ultimate result was we offered. They wanted us to do it for nothing. There's a big vermin issue in New York City, especially with the restaurants closed. We did what we could. Again, we wish them we wish them well. I mean, the Hill. I haven't looked out actually because my windows don't face that way. I think the garbage was picked up today. That was pictures that I saw last night. But you'll see it every week that this is where their garbage is being put. And in fact, in order to put their garbage where they are, they displaced a few of Hot Solar volunteers who raced to save our lives. I want to give a shout out to Hot Solar. There's not going to ever mention who, but there is a cooperator who last week had a medical issue, called Hot Solar at 4:30 in the morning. And within minutes, Hot Solar was there. These great, wonderful people who live in our buildings get up, rush out of bed, and within minutes are there to save a life and transport somebody to the hospital. Hot Solar is there for every single cooperator. It's an amazing, amazing organization. And if someone is looking for somewhere to donate money to, remember the life they save one day may very well be yours. So I want to, with that, I want to wish everybody a very, very happy, those who just celebrated Hanukkah. Hope you had a great Hanukkah. For those coming up with Christmas, Merry Christmas. A happy and healthy New Year to everyone. May 2021 be nothing like 2020. Hopefully we can all get back to our normal lives, whatever the new normal will be. For me personally, it's not having my glasses fog up all day when I'm wearing that mask. I just can't see wherever I'm walking or who's walking by me. But I wish everybody the absolute best, and thank you for being part of our meeting, and thank you for being part of our co-op. Okay, God bless everybody. Good night.